Very good to be here with everyone this morning. I'm going to get these slides up. Very good. We're going to go ahead and start, as Daniel said, with a discussion of land stewardship. What is it? Why is it important? I want to start off, however, by talking about a very common misperception when it comes to land stewardship. Many people would say that land stewardship is simply synonymous with the practices that are carried out on the land, whether that be brush control, rotational grazing, prescribed fire, or any other of the practices. And while these practices are certainly related to land stewardship, we want to say and emphasize that land stewardship is not merely a listing, a checklist of practices that is carried out on the land. Rather, land stewardship at its core is about the relationship between a person and a piece of land. When land stewardship is being carried out, there's going to be several things that are obvious and true, some byproducts of land stewardship. And one of those is healthy soil, or at least soil health moving in the right direction. So healthy soil, a functioning water cycle is another byproduct of land stewardship. We know how important that is to everyone. Land stewardship produces good wildlife habitat. And we're not just talking about the species we hunt, although that is important, but we're talking about habitat for many species, a byproduct of land stewardship. And we can say that land stewardship provides the basis and the foundation for productive and profitable agriculture. Most of us don't like to go very long between meals, and it's easy to see that agriculture is pretty darn important to us and to our society. And we want agriculture to be profitable, because that's how people stay connected to the land and able to invest back into the land. So the economic part is very important. And if agriculture feeds our bellies, natural beauty feeds our souls, and both are important. And stewardship lands will have aesthetic beauty. We can also say that land stewardship benefits all Texans. Every citizen of our state, no matter where they live, in the city or in the country, benefits when land is well taken care of. And that's a message that we all need to probably do a better job of proclaiming, of how important this is to every man, woman, and child in Texas. So what does land stewardship look like? Well, perhaps it looks something like this: a close connection to the land and a connection to the future. So I hope you would agree with me that land stewardship must be and is the very backbone for sustaining the natural resources and the natural values of Texas. We can learn a lot about stewardship from these two gentlemen. Most of you probably know who Aldo Leopold is. You may or may not know who Chip Merrill is. In my book, he's Mr. Land Stewardship. For about 30 years, he was the director of the TCU Ranch Management Program, one of my mentors. But let's see what these two gentlemen have to say about man's relationship to the land. Leopold said, "It is inconceivable to me that an ethical relation to the land can exist without love, respect, and admiration for the land, and a high regard for its value." And here's what Chip Merrill says: "One cannot work closely with the land for very long without developing a deep respect and appreciation for its character and its capabilities." So from these two gentlemen, these two excerpts, we can learn what this stewardship relation to the land consists of. It consists of having a deep respect for the land, an appreciation for the land, the realization that land has character and it has capability, that one can have an ethical relationship to the land, that one can and should love the land, admire the land, and have a high regard for the land. not just what it will produce, but for the land itself. So I think you can see that land stewardship is really about who a person is on the inside. So I'd like to propose this as perhaps a definition of land stewardship, being a deeply held inner conviction that motivates landowners and land managers to care for and sustain the land that has been entrusted to them. And why do they do it? For their own personal benefit? Yes, that is part of it. For the benefit of future generations? Yes, that's also involved. But also for the benefits that accrue to society. And this is perhaps what sets apart the genuine land steward, this recognition that there's a great deal of benevolence involved in land stewardship. It helps other people. Here's how one ranch describes their stewardship ethics and beliefs. They say, we realize that the decisions we make on this ranch have a rippling effect. In other words, they're acknowledging that what they do affects other people outside their fence. Our goal is to improve the ecological health of the land while at the same time making a living for ourselves. And so what more can society ask for than landowners who have that kind of ethic? Leopold said that a land ethic reflects the existence of an ecological conscience and a conviction of individual responsibility for the health of the land. Now, the word stewardship is not found there, but this is what stewardship is all about a person having a tender conscience toward the land and having inner convictions about taking care of the land. And so no matter if the landowner looks kind of crusty and gruff on the outside, the steward is going to have a tender heart toward the land, and his convictions about the land are not going to allow him to do anything to degrade or damage the land. Over the last 44 years of working with landowners, these are some of the things that I have found to be generally true as a way of describing that genuine land steward. They are people of great knowledge. It's not just book knowledge, it's not just seminar knowledge, it's practical day-to-day knowledge of soil, water, plants, animals, and how all these things work together under human management. And so this knowledge is able to be translated into concrete skills and ability to manage and take care of the land. Land stewards are highly committed people. It's not a part-time deal. It's not a pastime. It's a full-time commitment to a piece of land and everything that involves. They are people of perseverance because they know that there will be setbacks when you're working with nature. It's inevitable, and you have to be able to get past those hardships and setbacks. Land stewards are people who invest themselves into a piece of land. They invest their families into their work, and their soul and everything about them is invested into a piece of land. They strive to see the big picture. It's not just about raising cattle or raising deer or lots of songbirds or lots of wildflowers. Those things may be important, but they strive to see the bigger picture of landscape health, and the water cycle especially would be a part of that. They have to be realistic. When you're working with the land, you don't call the shots. The land, nature calls the shots more than anything, and you do not force the land to do what it cannot do. So you understand the limitations and the capabilities of every piece of land. And in general, land stewards try to have that long-term perspective. It's not only about what you do today or tomorrow. It's about 5, 10, 15, 20 years, the next generation, and the next generation after that. So these things are generally true of this person that we call a genuine land steward. That old man standing on the right-hand bank of the Blanco River, you see him, he's getting pretty old. He knows he's not going to be around much longer. He's thinking, he's contemplating, will my children and grandchildren take care of this ranch the way I have taken care of it? Will they love this piece of land the way I have loved it? That's what old people think about. And so part of stewardship is the stewardship of the future. It's that legacy of what's going to be left behind after you're gone, and making those assurances while you're still alive that those things will continue after you're gone and the next generation take over. Many families across this country, across Texas, and across the Hill Country are thinking about those things. How do we keep this piece of land intact? How do we keep it in operation? And these are things that families think about and consider. And many of them are considering the values of conservation easements. They're curious about, is this for me? Will it help me and my family achieve what we want to do? But it's not just about men and boys in straw hats. It's just as much about a grandmother teaching her granddaughter about flowers, about butterflies, about the birds. And so that little girl will one day love that piece of land so much that she's going to want to preserve Grandpa's old farm from ever being divided or developed or abused in any way. So it's not just about the agricultural facets, it's about everyone who loves and cares for a piece of land. I'm a person who enjoys going back in time and thinking about the way things were a long time ago. This is the schoolhouse that my grandma and her two sisters attended near the town of Sisterdale. Sometimes I like to go back into the past and think about how it was 100 years ago. But we can't do that, can we? We know that the Hill Country was much different 100 years ago, but we can't go back. We're stuck in the future, and the things that we do now, or we're stuck in the present, and the things we do affect what happens in the future. And we see the Hill Country being chipped away little by little. We don't have to look very far to see what's happening to the Hill Country. It's not like it was 50 or 100 years ago. It's different. And these things are disturbing to a lot of people who want to see what's left of the Hill Country be maintained. It has been said that those who do not understand nature are destined to deplete it. And I have found that to be a true statement. And there's many ways that nature can be depleted, and we see examples of it in the Hill Country. So that's the bad news. But the good news, and the corollary to this truth, is that those who understand nature best are compelled to conserve it. And I believe that's true, that when people understand nature better, they are more motivated to care for it and conserve it and take good care of it. Many years ago, I thought I knew the answer to this question. What would be required to retain what is left and what is special about the Hill Country? And I thought it was these 5 items: that we need large tracts of land in predominantly native vegetation under private ownership, operated under the principles of good stewardship, and in a way that is economically sustainable. I thought that was the answer to saving the Hill Country. And these things are important, but I was missing one important element that I've come to appreciate in recent years, and that these things must be today, and they must be tomorrow, and they must happen forever. To conserve, to protect, and to sustain in perpetuity. That is what land trust organizations are all about, and the people who support that. And you're going to learn more about that today. So stay on for the rest of the workshop for sure. From my perspective, the role of land trusts and associated organizations, yes, they do help landowners with conservation easements, very important part of the equation. Involved in education and outreach. That is where Hill Country Alliance shines very bright. We all need to be involved in that, but also finding ways to inspire and motivate this genuine land stewardship, because most of the time, the land stewardship must precede the conservation easement. And so you and I, everyone who's tuned in here, needs to be doing everything we can in the way of education, outreach, bringing people together. And I've been very gratified in recent years to see and experience landowners coming together, oftentimes on their own, sometimes formally, sometimes informally, to consider the land and the big picture of land health and stewardship. And so I think this is a good trend that we see happening across the region. And anything that we can do in every one of us in our sphere of influence, where we can help people deepen and strengthen that connection to the land, that's going to be important as far as instilling and motivating these genuine land stewardship ethics. And the results of all of this are good for everyone. Clean water, sustained flows over time, sustainable agriculture, fish and wildlife habitat, natural beauty, aesthetic values, recreation, and all of these things now and forever. That's what we're striving for. These are the results of stewardship. And you're going to hear people in the remainder of this workshop describe how that can happen